the irony of the entire situation is I kind of hate doing Latin. I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of a bit of a shock moment when I got put in charge of the Latin camp, because after everything I did in 5 years of CC, everybody will tell you that it was pretty blatantly obvious that I didn't care about doing Latin at all. So learning how to do that was very beneficial for me, because it was, learning to push through something that you can't stand doing. And as time went on, even though it might not have happened while I was learning the material, but looking back on it, I really do love doing something like Latin. It's just at the time I didn't understand how valuable it was.
Very nice. Could any of you comment on Socratic Circle and how that has helped you? I think you sort of alluded to it a little bit, Owen, but does anyone else want to comment on sort of the discussions we had in Challenge and Socratic Circle and how that has helped you?
So because I haven't done Challenge 4, which is I think that's one of the challenges that mostly focuses on Socratic dialogue. The Socratic dialogue that I did get into, it was definitely interesting being the person who has to get involved in the conversation, because that's not one of my first, I'd rather kind of be in the background and observe and listen. So being in the center of it all kind of forced me to talk and, actually participate, so.
Yeah, could somebody describe what happens in a Socratic Circle? Would that answer your question?
So basically a Socratic Circle, with a smaller class it's very hard, but a larger class, it's easier if you imagine there's an inner circle and that's the people discussing. Say that the topic is you just read the Screwtape Letters. And someone was assigned to lead the discussion on the Screwtape Letters, and the half the people in the class are discussing the Screwtape Letters. And then the other half of the class is outside listening to the conversation and critiquing the discussion skills of the leader, critiquing his leading, so say, oh, you should have done this, or great job doing this, and also critiquing the people's answers and the response to the questions. So it really helps the people inside to be thinking about what they're saying, and the people outside thinking about what they would have said, and just certain things about that.
They're looking at the process.
Yeah.
Yes, you have 5 people in the conversation, and it's kind of like the conversation booth. Because if you're like a rambler, that gets knocked out of you pretty fast.
Yeah.
Like when you're talking and you of course are just staring at you like, when is this guy gonna finish? you figure out pretty fast what's going on. And you also have after the conversation a little discussion time where you can say, what did I do right, or what did I do wrong? And that actually helps. So it also helps you bring in other people outside the conversation. If people were talking and people were quiet, the Socratic dialogue gives you the chance to bring these other people in and say, all right, well, Kaylee, what do you think about this? Or something like this.
I think Abe would be one of the people who would most attest to the fact that with a larger group of people for a Socratic Circle, especially with the class that we had configured for Challenge 3 a couple of years ago, you're not really allowed to ramble simply because somebody else is going to cut you off. But no, I think one of the most important things also about the Socratic Circle is that by having the people on the outside of the circle, it teaches you a lot more about how to lead a class, because there's a big difference between being able to talk for a long period of time and get points across, and have to write material and lead in a way where you're trying to engage everybody and get everybody onto the same page. It's not so much about what you know, it's about making sure that everybody else understands things as well, and it also allows you to get differing perspectives in a way that you really wouldn't be able to get without the kind of discussion-based model that CC provides.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I'm wondering if each of you could give a piece of advice to parents who don't have challenge-age children yet. What advice would you give?
So I jumped into my first year of CC last year, and when you get the guidebook, it's kind of overwhelming to look at and be like, your kid's going to learn Latin, and to Shakespeare. And I would just say, take it 1 week at a time. It was hard for me to look at the curriculum and say, I have to complete this paper that's 15 pages long. And instead just being able to chunk it up and just take things one bite at a time. Because at the end of the year, you're not as overwhelmed. You look back and you say, oh, I took my time and I did this and I look at what I accomplished. So what I would say for advice, just take one thing at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself thinking that you have to rush. Do it at your own pace.
I'm going to let Jordan and Owen go next because I'm going to release them to prep for our final thing. So give your advice and then I'm going to send you guys off.
I don't know, the best thing I could say is, I'm trying to find a good way to phrase this, but ultimately, life happens, guys. Like, it's okay if you can't finish all the material. There are going to be weeks where you have things going on. There are going to be weeks where you need your kid to help you do some things, and it's going to be, if your kid misses 2 or 3 assignments from a week, don't start freaking out and act like the world's going to end, because seriously, with all the other students and all the other resources inside of the class, your kid's going to be able to keep up just fine. Other people are going to come alongside them and help them if things start to go wrong.
Something I'd say to you guys is essentials and foundations are extremely important. I know if I hadn't done essentials, I would not have gotten through Latin. Because Latin starts, you need to know the stuff you learn in essentials to do Latin. So if you go into Challenge A and you haven't done essentials, it's going to be a whole lot harder. And the way they did this program is they started with the challenges, and then they realized, hey, we need a foundation for this. So then they did the foundation. So foundations is really designed to prepare you for challenge. So what you're doing right now is really preparing you for challenge.
Awesome. I'll give you two girls a chance to give some advice in a minute. But I'd like to give Owen and Jordan about 3 minutes to prepare an impromptu debate, and you guys get to choose the topic. So what's something controversial that you would like them to debate?
Plastic guns. Should the guns be put out on the internet? Those plastic make your own guns.
All right, plastic
You know
make
what
your
I'm
own
talking
guns.
about?
I'm taking
3D.
half on this, and it is 100% personal.
Okay, so Jordan's going to say yes, Owen's going to say no. You guys can go over in the corner, prepare for about 3 minutes, and then give us like a 1-minute speech on each side. All right. Any advice for our parents? And then, yes, go ahead.
I would definitely see having consistency, like have them on a regular schedule of doing their homework and not putting it off to the last minute. Because once you get into that habit, it's pretty hard to break it once you're in challenge, especially because the workloads can be pretty stressful sometimes when you're just looking at, oh, look at all this work I gotta complete instead of working on a little bit at a time all day. I think that's really important, especially with essentials, writing the papers. It's great because you have that skill to be able to put them together when you're in challenge. It's a real gift. You appreciate the little things that you learn more. You appreciate slowly digest them. Yes.
So instead, get the race, right?
I was going to say the great thing about CC is I kind of saw it as more like a guideline, I guess. I mean, the curriculum, eventually you want to get through, technically you have to get through all the material, but the thing that I found was really awesome about CC
2 questions. Yeah, no.
I would love to hear for these other parents, in challenge A, the theme is ownership, but by the time you're in challenge 1 and 2, how much oversight is your parents doing? And when do they seem to pull back? And when does that feel right for you? Because when you're 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, we hold your hands. But now you're looking at challenge more high school. When do you feel like your parents should back off? And when do you feel like you have to, a good grasp on your own work? A lot of parents think that they can't homeschool through high school. Speak on that. Go, child, go.
So I actually did challenge A twice. And I think I think the second year of challenge A, it was kind of like my parents were like, okay, this is your schoolwork, if you don't get it done, that's not my problem. But in the higher challenges, it was more like my parents were almost like they weren't necessarily teaching me, but it was kind of more like a self-teach almost. My parents were there to, overlook and, if I needed help, I could go to them and they could help me. Kind of more like peers, sort of, if that makes sense. Yeah, the coach, if I needed their help, or, they'd check on me like, oh, how are you doing in your school this week? And I could tell them if I was struggling with something, they'd be like, okay, well, let's sit down and talk about it, or, I'll help you work through it. So, I think my second year of challenge A was more of the transition area, and then when I got to challenge 1, it was more kind of like you're, more on your own.
In challenge B, it was more like figuring out my strengths and weaknesses, I guess, and like going to my parents when I realized what those weaknesses were, and learning how to ask for help, and being able to be accountable for my work. And in challenge 1, it was more like figuring it out by myself, but still going to my parents when I need help, and they ask me, how are you doing? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? But I think having clear communication with your children and talking to them and being like, okay, I want you, this is what I expect from you for this week. I know that the guide may say I want you to do everything, but we have our own schedule and I want you to do A, B, and C. And just setting clear guidelines of what to expect for your kids to do, especially because it's kind of hard in that position to understand what you should do because you know you're the best. The guide's great, but it doesn't do it. So.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so is there anyone, I have time for like one quick question before our debaters come back in. Yes.
Is there anything that you guys feel like CC could do better? Like, is there anything you feel underprepared in? You're old enough now to have experienced the world a little bit. You've learned about discussion, debate, you've learned about science and math and history, you've learned about art and music, I'm assuming. Is there anything you feel like, if only there were, or I feel like this is a little lacking, or anything at all?
You can say no, if you don't think so.
They're probably not up on all the current movies.
It's a hard question because I was asking what you don't know, which
Exactly.
is, it's hard to quantify.
Well, I'd say if there's something, going through the CC program, I guess the way I would think if something's lacking, that would be, I didn't start off with CC when I was younger, so I feel like if CC's lacking in anything, it wasn't really CC, it was just, our family not knowing about it until, we were older.
how to learn. And I'm gonna release these girls because you guys have jobs to do, right? So we're gonna hear from the guys in a minute. Thanks. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Weston, can I
Yes.
just add something real quick?
Yes.
A lot of these kids have been accepted into college. A lot of us parents want our kids to go to college. Having a CC education very well prepares you to go to college. So don't think because your kids are homeschooled or because they do CC, somehow they're going to be lacking in transcript or qualifications to get into college. Both of my graduated CCers have gotten into the college of their choice.
Yeah, mine too. Actually, there is a problem, and that's I hear back from CC graduates going to college, and they say, "Mom, I'm bored. It's too easy, and there aren't other people like me who love to learn." So they tend to hang out with the professors and the high honor students, and they find people who love to learn in that situation. Okay, one more comment.
It's not just a mom saying that, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard it firsthand from the kids myself. So.
Yeah, it's true. One
Yeah.
more comment, and
And
then we're gonna unleash these
I think the other thing
debaters.
is, as far as transcripts go, that CC Connected for Challenge levels will have there's like a couple things on there that can guide you about transcripts. And I would just advise you to start it in the 9th grade and don't wait. Try to get your hands around it as soon as that 9th grade year happens. And my husband followed my son, who is Jordan. When he got into the challenge years, my husband met with him twice a week, and that was it, just to make sure he was on track, and he had some input and some conversation about where he was at. And my husband read his papers and things. So he was really back, and Jordan was really initiating his learning by then.
Yeah.
So it does actually happen.
Okay, so just to kind of take a jab at ourselves, the reason she's bringing that up is because we didn't really finish working on my transcripts until like 2 weeks ago.
But
True
they're done.
story.
They're done. They're like 95%.
Speak to it yourself, buddy.
Okay, I'm gonna give Cheryl a chance to ask a question,
All right.
and then.
Yeah, I'm not part of it. I'm just looking at this as a possibility for my daughter who's going into high school. But I see one thing lacking in it, or I wonder where you might put it, is music and art.
Oh,
Absolutely sure.
I think that's great.
Yeah, but
Was it year one that we did that? I can't remember.
challenge 2.
Oh, no. So there is challenge 2. So there's a class on music appreciation. Challenge B. When I went through challenge 1, they had music theory. So there's no specific like instruments you learn, but like because it's hard just the way CC programs work. But I've done classes at the local school or the local high school. My brother did tons of, he had the violin and he did piano, so you can take lessons. It's not just like in CC, but there's definitely opportunities, and you know, learn a lot about music and art in general, but maybe not a specific skill. We learn the general thing, the general principle, and then there's specific art training.
Yeah, more like discussing art and the worldview of art and things like that. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to let these guys debate, and then can we keep a question?
I was just going to comment.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Because she lives near me.
Oh, awesome.
So I think part of the reason is because after 12, the fine arts are no longer required. So before it's a requirement, and after 12 it's not.
Oh, I see, in Vermont. And since we're national, we're actually a worldwide program, we don't necessarily adhere to specific state standards. So there's certain things that
I just wondered if that was
Thanks.
national.
yeah, that's
No.
state,
No.
that's a
No.
state standard. So we provide this framework, and then parents tailor it to what they need, which is awesome. And it's interesting that, so we don't provide typing or keyboarding, but there's certain things that when you say yes to something, you're in essence saying no to something else. So we are not providing, cooking and home ec and change your tire and all that. So we just have said yes to some certain core basic things, and then we figure each family can decide how they're going to separate that. So I'm going to give these guys a time to debate. How about if I give you can you do like a minute and a half? Then I'll give 2 questions for cross-examination, and you get a minute and a half rebuttal. No cross-ex? Okay.
two of us are too familiar with crossing each other. We're not going to get anything done.
They're very big debaters, but they're going to kind of play it by ear and just have a gracious and respectful, formal debate dialogue on this.
I'm going to be careful if I go over to the pulpit. And use
Go
it as a podium.
for it. Go to the pulpit.
Yeah. Your battery's still
I wonder when that would be over.
Does anybody have a timer?
Okay, so before we actually get into this, I just want to point out the fact that Owen and I have both been competing in NCFCA for about 5 years. So we've probably done this round more times than we care to count if we were to look back. Two of the more notable ones were we actually went up against each other twice in the last couple of years, one of which was in semifinals for the Salem qualifier, in which Owen beat me and won the tournament. So Owen's a very well-established debater. And the other one, he ended up knocking me out before Joshua's girlfriend took him out at the beginning of Pennsylvania. So this has definitely happened more than a couple times before.
And also a disclaimer, I just heard about this topic like 5 minutes ago, and he briefed me, so sorry if my information.
Yeah, I'm kind of holding the keys to the kingdom on this one because I've literally been following the story since about 2012. So.
All right, your timer is ready.
All right, I'm going to be breaking down my argument into two primary subcategories, which I'm going to split up past that. Usually I'm used to LD, so I'd be using value criterion, and I'd be doing things nice and eloquent, but I've only got a minute and a half. So I'm going to first off be talking about the ramifications inside of our country as far as the First Amendment is concerned. Inside of our country, anything is considered speech if there is and I actually learned this from doing moot court, there is a standard for what qualifies as speech and what qualifies as conduct inside of our country. And now that standard is essentially whether or not what you're working with has a particularized message to it, and whether or not it's likely that other people are going to understand that message. If you understand and you listen to the guy who actually created these files, Cody Wilson, talk about it, he's making an entire commentary on the fact that regulation in general doesn't seem to work. And with the idea of the advent of 3D printing, it's not just regulation as far as speech is concerned, it's regulation as far as something as simple as physical objects. With 3D printing, it makes it incredibly hard to do something like ban the idea of objects, because information, ideas, and now even physical objects can go through at a rapid pace. The second thing I want to talk about is the Second Amendment. The reason why the Second Amendment matters is because we're talking about things as people having a fundamental right to basic self-defense. And something like a 3D printed plastic gun that you can find online that only fires one shot as of current meets that standard of self-defense. You only get one shot. You can't go kill 1,000 people with this thing. You get one shot that can easily be used to stop muggers, rapists, people attacking you with a knife. That's the kind of thing that the Second Amendment was designed for, and these guns meet that goal. I'm out of time, so thank you very much.
So 2 minutes right now?
1 second. And do you have any questions for Jordan before you start?
I don't think so. I have 2 minutes? Or a minute and a half?
Minute and a half.
Okay. So I just have a few arguments. First is no limitations. This is a great idea, but the basic problem with this is it's on the internet and there's no limitations. And there's two parts of this. There's no limitation for age. Right now, you have to be 18 or above to buy guns, and that's because we don't want younger children having guns because that's dangerous. They're a danger just as much to themselves as they are to others. The problem with a 3D printed gun is anybody who has access to the internet or a 3D printer, we have a 3D printer at both the libraries near us, can go and make a gun. The other problem is there's not metal. I know there's 3D printed guns that are allowed now, but you are required to put metal in it so that it is detectable by a metal detector going into a plane. But if you allow this, there is no limit on that, if I am correct, I'm not sure. But I'm pretty sure there's no limitation on this, so you can have a gun without metal, which would be perfect for someone who wanted to bring it onto a plane and hijack or something. And now I'm going to respond to the two amendments. The First Amendment, freedom of speech. If I discovered how uranium was made so that I could post that on the internet and show how you can make a nuclear bomb, would the government take that off? Would they have a right to take that off? Absolutely, because that's incredibly dangerous, and this is the same idea. You still have a right to bear arms, as the Second Amendment tells you. And the idea behind the Second Amendment is that we have a right to stand up to the government. But as Jordan said, this is a one-shot gun. So this thing isn't really going to help stand up to the military, so we still have the right to bear arms, but this isn't really helping that, but it's harming it because there's no limitations, and it can be harmful to yourself and the rest of society. Thank you.
Woo!